I hope you like playing Diablo 2, and if you're gonna be playing Diablo 2, it only makes sense to master the game, at least from a beginner's perspective, because let's be honest, Diablo 2 is pretty fun, and if you kind of miss the mark with some of the loot that you can get or some of the gold that you can make, you might find yourself a little bit in a pickle and having to go back and farm some stuff. And that's kind of annoying when you just want to progress to the story and maybe get to Nightmare and Hell a lot quicker, because this is supposed to give you tips on how to master the loot system and the gold system in Diablo 2 as a beginner, so you can get your adventures going and get to that end game where the real stuff happens. But with that out of the way, welcome to GameBase, our gaming culture channel, where we do all sorts of videos on all sorts of games. And today, you've guessed it, we have another Diablo 2 video because we are hyped for the game. And you might have noticed some things changing in the background because our studio is undergoing a lot of changes, but that's not why you're here. You're here to find out what tips you can use to make your gameplay better and not suffer a long time regret for not picking up that one specific item or making enough gold where you find yourself in a pickle and cannot buy potions. Do people actually get into that position? Maybe. But let's explore some things that you probably should know, at least when it comes to making gold. And I'm not talking about farming gold, which is a big difference, and I don't think that's even a thing. Do people actually have that much gold problems? I don't know, because I actually do a couple of things that never give me gold problems. At least when it comes to clearing normal, you can get to Nightmare pretty easy and never ever have any gold issues. You can buy all the potions you want, town portals, you can even gamble, and I actually tend to gamble a little bit because I just have too much gold, but I'm not going to tell you how to do that. What I'm going to tell you is like what items to pick up so you can vendor. Yes, picking up gold is a little bit cumbersome, and until Resurrected comes out so you can actually automatically pick up the gold, you're probably better off picking select items that will give you the most amount of bang for your buck when you sell them. And the best one to pick up to get the gold is class items. Class items are basically, you know, sorcerer's staffs and globes, necromancer's wands, druid wolf heads and raven heads and antlers and stuff like that, paladin scepters, barbarian horn helmets and all of that good stuff. I don't think assassin katars, I've never really gotten a lot of gold out of assassin katars. Not Amazon either. I feel like those classes have the weakest gold value per class items out of all of the options there, and I think probably some of the best ones are necromancer and paladin, so keep your eyes out for that. They have the little unique name. Even if you don't have them identified, you'll usually find them as a scepter or a wand or a preserved head or a bone wand or you know, a staff, greater staff, war staff, stuff like that. You will eventually get to develop a knife for that, so you pick them up and vendor them. Obviously identified, never vendor unidentified items, and that should get you at least going for the beginning part of the game. The later on you are in the game, the better these items will sell for, because they'll start to get more skill plus X to skills, which is really what's very valuable when you vendor these items. And more often than not, you will find yourself selling them for the gold cap, because depending on which act you are in, the vendor cannot just pay you all like infinite amounts of gold. They will have a cap. So for instance, in Act 1, a vendor can only pay you a maximum of 5 gold per item, even if that item is worth 10 times as much, which happens to me as well. You can either sell it for that quick 5k gold or keep it until later acts and sell it then for more gold value, although I don't recommend doing that because they'll just start to clutter up in your bags and it's just gonna be a whole mess, and you don't need that. But with that out of the way, let's look at the next best thing to pick up in terms of bag space and gold value per bag space. That is, in my opinion, throwing potions. Not necessarily that you'll get the most amount of gold for them, but they're the easiest to get. They're very often found out in the world. If you open chests, if you open shrines, if you kill like rare monsters, you'll find stuff like exploding potions, strangling potions, choking potions, all of those little poisony, fiery potions that you can essentially throw like little bombs, like little grenades. You can pick them up, they stack, obviously if they're the same type, and you can just sell them for a lot of gold, hundreds and even thousands of gold for like just picking up a potion. Anything that's not mana, health, rejuve, or stamina, or thawing potions essentially, or antidotes, they're basically throwing potions, and those are really good to sell because they just take one slot. And speaking of one slot taking items that are also very, very good to sell. You can essentially sell them for a lot more than potions, but they're a lot rarer. That's rings and amulets. No surprise, hardly any ring or amulet sells for less than 1000 gold unless you're just looting the first level 1 monster with the shittiest ring ever. They sell for a lot, they only take 1 space, which is really good. You have a high chance of getting good rings and amulets as well that you can also wear, but if you get amulets and rings with fast cast rate or half freeze duration, these are usually the items that sell the most. And we're talking about general concepts here, not that very specific ring that sells for 50,000 gold, right? But they're pretty often found. They're not as often as potions, but they're probably more often than class items. And you can sell them for a lot. Usually the way I do it when I get a first character rolling, if I loot a ring in the first 30 minutes of the game, I'm pretty much set with the gold for the rest of the game. And last but not least, the fourth best thing to pick up, and although it's a little bit harder to recommend, it's body armor. Now, earlier in the game, they don't sell for as much, and I'm talking clearly about the chest armor. The leathers, the studded leathers, the tough leathers, the quilted armors don't really sell for a lot, but once you get into the mail bits, the scale mail, the plate armors, they sell for 10,000 gold or higher. The breastplates and all of that good stuff, and you have a chance of getting some really good enhanced defense stats or elemental resistances, which are usually good for you, but maybe good for your follower or mercenary in this sense, if they're naked for some reason. Why are you keeping your mercenary naked? Just equip them, god damn it. But once you get to like I think late Act 2, Act 3-ish, if you loot these body armors, these chest plates, these scale mails, these breastplates, the plate mails, and all of that good stuff, gothic armors, I think starting with Act 4, then you'll be able to sell them for a lot. And usually they can cover a full death's worth of gold, just one item. And you'll find them pretty well because they can be white, and they're pretty good even if they're just white, if they're not magical or anything like that. Usually white items sell for quite a bit. But since they take a lot more space in your bags, I don't usually recommend them too much unless you're in the later half of the game. And with all of these items, class and body armor as well, you can also loot them at gray, which have sockets, and that gives them a different kind of value, which we will talk in a bit. And going to the next section of the video, the loot. The loot is important. Sure, you can loot all sorts of good stuff that can net you a lot of gold to cover all of your expenses, possible and impossible. There are also items that you will be interested in to use on your character. And starting with the most important one is runes. Runes have the little orange name that you can find on the ground while you hold down Alt, so you know exactly never to miss runes. They also have a unique sound effect when they drop. No other item has that sound effect when it drops, so it's very hard to miss when a rune drops unless you're just not paying attention or you're rocking any other music than Diablo 2, in which case, what are you doing? Sacrilege! But runes can be incredibly strong. On their own, they give you really good bonuses to your armor, but clearly you can also use them to create rune words, which we'll go into this a bit, but essentially if you use the right runes in the right order in an item, you can create a super item with specific and unique effects. But yes, runes are the best thing to pick up off the ground, and following runes, my personal suggestion is to never miss a unique item. Unique items have a little bit of a brownish tint to their name. They're not the yellow items that you might be familiar with, and obviously they're not white, but they're a little bit brownish. Unique items, essentially, once you identify them, they turn into, well, what their namesake is, unique items. They have a different look to them than their regular items. They have a unique model, and they give you very specific bonuses, and the bonuses are set. The unique items have a specific name. Once you loot them, they're always having the exact same set of bonuses. Sometimes the numbers themselves can range between, you know, I don't know, 50 to 100. You get 50 attack rating, or you might get 100 attack rating. As an example, you can have damage and elemental damage and resistances as well. But unique items can be a big boon early game. If you are lucky enough to get one, then let's say Act 1, it will probably carry you a full act or an act and a half. Hardly ever worth to replace unless you're just out leveling them by a large margin. Moving forward to the next item on the list, it's set items. They have the green tint to their name, very bright green, and they're usually found, you know, on rares and elite mobs and stuff like that. They're not very common, but if you do have a bunch of magic find already equipped on your character, you can loot a bunch of greens, and if you're lucky to get the right set, you're gonna get some pretty awesome bonuses. One noteworthy mention, at least in kind of like early-ish Act 1, mid Act 1, I think it's, I'm sorry, mid normal difficulty, probably around Act 2-ish. You can loot something like Sigyn's Shield, the shield from the Sigyn set, which gives you +1 to all skills. And once you start matching these items and you get more pieces from the same set, you'll start to get some pretty crazy bonuses, like crazy amounts of attack rating that can help you if you're playing a melee character that just needs that little attack rating to hit. So those are really good. This is a little bit harder to place. Sometimes class items can be more important than set items to pick up. Sometimes you can hit a lot of duds because class items come with what I mentioned earlier, plus the skills. And 9 out of 10 or more than that, maybe like 99 out of 100 are vendor class items, and they do get you a lot of gold, but it's very hard to find that exact class item that has the exact skills that you want for your specific build. However, if you do manage to get one that gives you a bunch of points to the skills that you use, you will feel the difference in power incredibly so. And this is why it's a little bit hard to place, because if you get the right one, it's probably going to give you more power than a set item, but the chances of you getting the right one is pretty slim. But anyway, if you do pick them up, you'll sell all the ones that you don't need and you'll just end up with lots and heaps and piles of gold. Remember, class items are pretty good. Next, and I've mentioned this earlier, gray or socketed items. Ideally, you kind of want these with usually no magical properties, because you can give them the bonuses that you want. You can use gems to give them specific properties, either boosted stats or boosted damage. You can use runes to give them really good bonuses, or you can create rune words, and this is probably the most important thing that you can get out of the socketed items, and we'll go into rune words in a bit. Socketed items usually come with the gray text if they have probably more than one socket, although I did find socketed blue items and stuff like that, and although the sockets don't usually go to yellow items, almost never, ever, but they're pretty good. If you find like a piece of armor with 4 sockets or a big sword with at least 3 sockets, they usually are not very common, so you probably can be good enough just stocking them into your stash until you find that rune word that you want to do. And speaking of things that you can put into socket items, you get gems. I pretty much pick up all the gems that drop almost every time, and similar to runes, they have a unique sound effect, which I think it's also unique to them. I don't know if rings and amulets have the same sound effect as gems, but they're really good, at least early on. If you're very unlucky with getting some really good loot, but you have some socketed items, you can put gems in. You can put like sapphires to get some cold damage on weapons and slow your enemies down, especially enemies that kind of chunk you a lot. You can put it in your armor to get mana if you don't want to spend points into energy and you just want more mana, at least to survive early game until you get to the higher levels of energy passively by just leveling up and you don't need mana assistance anymore. My personal favorite is to use topazes in armor, anything but shields and weapons, so that you can get magic find. This is how I like to play my early Diablo 2 game, where I stack as much magic find into my character and just get better and better loot. I fill in my chest piece and my helmets with topazes. Granted, that makes you a little bit weaker because socketed items don't usually have a lot of properties, and magic find doesn't make your character stronger, but it does let it loot more good stuff, and that's pretty cool. Play with your gems, save them. You can even upgrade them with your Horadric cube in stronger and stronger gems. And the chip gems and some of the higher gems can be used in special recipes with the Horadric cube. And we're getting a little bit to the lower side of the list. They're not as important, but they can definitely help you out with quality of life. Rejuvenation potions are really good. They're the potions that instantly regen health and mana, 35% to be exact, per potion, and they can be really good in a pinch, especially when you get surrounded by all of those mobs and you get to stun lock, especially if you're playing hardcore. God damn it, man, you need those rejuvenation potions. And if you put 3 little potions into the Horadric cube and you transmute it, you'll get a full rejuve potion, which essentially heals 100% of your HP and mana points instantly. Very good to have, especially as you're playing the game for the first time. And of course, with the rejuvenation potions comes stamina potions. A lot of people tend to overlook the value of stamina potions, but you will find yourself, especially if you're kind of replaying through some quests or some zones, you're looking for something very specific, or you just want to rush towards a boss or something like that, you'll find yourself at least early game lacking stamina and having to stop running, which can be really annoying when you can just pop a stamina potion. Having like 2 or 3 in your bags is always good. Pop a stamina potion, you can essentially run through a whole zone without ever having to stop at all. Stamina potions are incredibly quality of life that not enough people seem to use. When I look at how my friends play, I really recommend you don't miss out on much. You don't need to stock them up, stock all of your stashes up or your belts up, but having like at least 2 available is pretty good. And to go with that, keys. Although this is pretty obvious, you want to loot keys because, you know, lock chests and stuff like that have sometimes really good loot. And this is kind of like the last one on the list because it's a little bit more specific. Clearly, you kind of always want to be able to open chests, and if you're just paying attention and you're looting keys, you're rarely ever going to have a need for more keys. You can only carry 12 at a time in 1 stack, but you don't really need more than that. You're not gonna find a lot of locked chests, but it's easy to overlook them. It's like, I don't need to open chests. There's just shit items. But if you're also running a character that has magic find, like I do, opening up chests essentially tells the game, okay, roll new loot for me, and it takes into calculations all of your magic find. And again, that's another chance for you to get a really good item, class item, set item, unique items, all of that good stuff. Keys are pretty good. Don't overlook them. You don't need to stack them too much. To 10, 12 keys should be more than enough. But enough about what items to pick up. Let's say you've already picked up. What are these items? And let's actually talk a little bit about the runes, which I mentioned before. Runes essentially give you very specific bonuses. There's a lot of rune types with a lot of different bonuses, depending on where you put them, whether it's in armor or whether it's in weapons and things like that. Getting just runes can get a socketed item to be very good and to carry you through an act. And I would recommend using that if you're playing for the first time. Why not just explore the game? Personally, what I would actually suggest is you to save runes and actually create rune words. And if you kind of know what the rune words are, you might be able to use the runes that are not that great. Rune words are essentially secret combinations of runes that you can put in a specific item to automatically transform it into a mega item. That item will get the bonuses of each individual rune, but will also transform into something like a unique item with a specific name, with specific predetermined bonuses that already exist in the game. One of the best examples for this is the Leaf rune word, which you can use in a 2-socketed staff, where it gives you +3 to fire skills and a bunch of other bonuses specifically for sorcerers. But you can get that pretty early. I think the earliest you can get it at level 19, one of the earliest rune words and one of the most impactful one, especially if you're playing sorceress and if you're also playing an elemental druid, because it gives you +2 fire skills for druid as well, and also fire claws, which is what I am currently rocking on my character that I'm playing right now. That is an amazing items, and there are lists online with a lot of rune words. You can either just discover them yourself and be happy when you do, or you can look up specific rune words for specific items that you might be interested in. Runes are your best friend. And lastly, the last topic on today's video that I wanted to touch on when it comes to mastering the loot system of the game and making your run through the game more enjoyable and easier, because it can get a little bit tough at times, especially if you're playing for the first time, and that is the Horadric Cube. A couple of quality of life suggestions. Now, if you don't know what the Horadric Cube is, you haven't been playing Act 2, because it's an item that you loot in Act 2 as part of the story, but you actually get to keep it. The Horadric Cube is a core mechanic of Diablo 2, which has been eventually implemented into Diablo 3 as well, kind of begrudgingly. But the Horadric Cube essentially lets you transmute items. Think of it as kind of like an alchemy type item. You can transfer some items into different items. You can upgrade, like we mentioned, potions and gems and stuff like that. What you do is you get the Horadric Cube, you fill it in with the items necessary for whatever you want to do. Let's say 3 chipped gems of the same type, and you hit that little transmute button and boom, you get a bigger gem. You do the same with potions. You can add sockets to items. You can create all sorts of good quality of life stuff that I really recommend you experience and experiment with all the little quirks that the Horadric Cube can give you, especially when it comes to potions. Later on, you'll find some advanced recipes if you do get stuff like Nightmare and Hell, but by then you'll probably know all the ins and outs of the game, and you can probably find online resources, or let us know in the comment section below if you want to find or know more information about that kind of stuff. We love Diablo 2 and we want to make a lot more videos, especially as Resurrected is coming closer and closer and closer. We're so excited. So if you want to see more Diablo content, let us know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching the video. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe. You know, the good jazz, the good YouTube jazz. It helps this new channel to grow and us to make more and more awesome content for you. Thank you for watching the video. See you next time.